Excellent. Hello, everybody on Facebook. Welcome to the October product workshop from YouLi. I'm Jen Fine, head of product here at YouLi, and we're joined today with Anna, who's one of our account managers in the US, and Ansley, who is our voice of the customer today. So she's going to be asking questions on behalf of obviously her company, but I'm sure those are questions that everybody has. So we're looking forward to seeing what comes up. And today is a conversation about mostly AutoPay, which is a much anticipated feature that we are starting the trials on very shortly. So in November, we're going to kick that off with our trial customers. And so we're looking forward to getting lots of feedback. So keeping in mind that AutoPay is a pretty big change in your customer's experience and your experience in managing payments. So that's why we're being really cautious about the way we roll this out. So we're working in partnership with folks that are joining our trial to make sure that it goes really smoothly, because obviously you do not want to have a situation where somebody didn't realize they had signed up to get automatically charged and then you end up with chargebacks. So definitely an important thing to be very conscious of the way you turn on this feature and the way that you roll it out. So we'll be talking a lot about the feature itself, but also about the way that you will introduce it to your customers and consent and things like that. So the process kind of around the feature as well. So I thought I would kick off with just here we go. Just a quick view of what this is going to look like when your customers actually get into an AutoPay situation. So I'm going to start with the end and then we're going to work our way back. So let's go ahead and share my screen. So this is, can everybody see my screen? Excellent.
Yep.
So this is where we're trying to get your travelers. We're trying to get them to the point where they see the amounts that they've paid, and then they can see what auto payments are scheduled. So this is showing in a dynamic installment plan mode at the moment. And so you can see how these are spread evenly across these installments. And you'll notice that there's also a little box below that where the customer, the traveler can see what their upcoming payment is and when it's scheduled for. And we'll also give them a little hint as to sort of what payment method they have saved that will be charged. So this is primarily going to be credit cards. So you'll see us referencing Save Card, but of course we are now allowing saved ACH, which is the US bank transfer method. So if they've saved a bank account instead of a card, it'll just indicate that here instead of the card. So something really important to know about the way AutoPay will work is that once they're enrolled in AutoPay, they cannot make additional payments. So you'll see that there's no control here, right? Like this is your normal invoice that you would see on a trip. And you can see the payments that have been made. You can see the schedule, but you might have been used to, for example, these controls here where they can make a payment, right? So these controls only show if you're not in an AutoPay. When the traveler is enrolled in AutoPay, they have to cancel it basically in order to then make an independent payment. So if you have a customer who says, oh, I'm enrolled in AutoPay, but I actually just want to make like a quick chip away payment, they have to cancel it, make that payment, and then re-enroll as part of that process if they want to do that. So just keep that in mind. It's a really important control so that people don't kind of get into a weird place with like, wait, but I scheduled the $750 payment, but then I made a $100 payment. So shouldn't that drop that to $650? We just thought, no, that's too confusing. We're just going to go ahead and make it a clear process. Cancel the auto pay, make your payment, re-enroll if you need to. So Ansley, just checking in that requirement makes sense. And if you have any questions or comments on that.
No, that makes sense.
Excellent. So the other thing to note is that the customer needs to be logged in order to interact with their auto pay. So I'm just going to check and see. So, and so in order to cancel, and so of course there will be a pop-up that'll be like, are you sure? Right. And so they can choose to keep it or they can choose to cancel. And also recognizing that they will need to cancel the auto pay in order to change the payment method, because they will need to, let me go. This is why we're trialing. So we will definitely get these kinds of little things fixed before you guys go live with this next week. But basically the user will need to be logged in, and I'm guessing that's probably why I'm hitting that error. So I'm just going to bounce to another screen and just jump into that page logged in. So actually this is a great example of some of the problems that customers might hit, which is that if they have logged in and then their login expires while they're sitting on the page. So let's see if I'm right about this. Yeah. So that's what it was. It was because in that other tab, I had logged in last night and loaded up that page, but my login had actually expired. So we're going to be finding these little cases and showing better error messages over time, but keep that in mind that if a customer is having challenges with their AutoPay, it might be because they're not logged in. So just keep that in mind, and the way that you can ask, like, do they see their name in the upper right-hand corner of the page? And if they do, then they're logged in. And if they don't, then they'll need to log in. Now, generally speaking, we will also be prompting them. So we're working on making sure we're prompting them to be logged in at the right times. But keep that in mind during the trial to make sure that they're logged in order to access these things. This is really important. There's always a balance between security and convenience. We allow magic link access for a lot of things, but we cannot allow non-logged in access to saved cards and automated payments. As you can imagine, that's really important. So now we're kind of back into the flow where we've canceled the auto pay. So now you can see before I saw the auto pay was scheduled here, right? But now that's just completely gone. And instead I have my controls back so I can make these payments, right? And then I'm prompted here to say, if I use my saved card, it actually says AutoPay not enrolled. Once you enroll, this saved method will be used for all future installments in the payment schedule automatically on the due date. You can always cancel. So this is just a little info panel to kind of introduce this concept. This panel only appears because I'm logged in. So I'm just going to go back to that page where I'm not logged in. And you can see I don't have that same prompt there, right? So I don't have that prompt because I'm not logged in. So it's not encouraging me. So this is something where I actually would love some feedback from you, Ensley, in terms of whether or not we should sort of, you would want here on this page for them to be encouraged to log in order to access that. Like if they're not already logged in.
I would think so, because if they can like see this part, they might think that they have access to make a payment. So that would be a very clear way to tell them why the reason is that they can't make that payment is because they're not logged in.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we currently have it in the pop-up, but I think we need to pull it back onto that trip page before they get into here, because this is where it sort of prompts them to log in to access this. So definitely take a note on that one to prompt login.
And can I ask a question too?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if they have to cancel their auto pay because they have to change a payment method, or they just decide, I know they when they cancel, they will get a notification, but if they cancel because of the like a failed payment, they need to change
Mm-hmm.
their payment method. We get a notification for that, but do we get a notification they re-enrolled, or like how do we know it's because no,
Let's see.
no.
So yeah, that's a great point. So there's going to be a BCC on the cancellation that will go to the main contact on the trip. So you'll be notified when when they cancel it, and canceling happens when they want to change card, like I just showed you, and when they just choose to cancel because they asked to cancel it, and also when a payment fails. So if a
Right.
payment fails on their saved method, it automatically cancels the auto pay because we
Yeah.
can't make a charge, and it sends them a notification saying it has failed. Please click through to make a payment, and you'll be BCC'd, the main contact on the trip, which is typically the account owner. So usually like the hello ad or the info ad that you have set up on your account.
Okay.
And so then you can go in and sort of see that failed payment. So let me just jump over. You'll actually see it looking like this. This is just
Mhm.
a mock-up. You'll see this icon showing on your manage payments table to tell you that they have that there's a failure there. So
Okay.
this is the auto pay was enrolled, but the last payment failed. If they just canceled auto pay, it'll show like this because they still have their saved method, assuming they haven't deleted the saved method. If they just canceled it, it's going to show like this instead, which is just
Okay.
falling back to they have a saved method, but they're not an auto pay. And then when they re-enroll, it'll go back to the green one here.
Okay.
Does that distinction make sense? And then your question was about knowing when they do enroll. I'm trying to remember. You'll be notified when they make a payment. And actually, that's a good point. We could include information in your notification about that payment that at that time they enrolled in AutoPay. So we could
Okay.
adjust that
Yeah.
template. So notification.
And I know you said it's the trip contact that gets notified. What if I like list the group leader as the main contact? Do they get notified or?
You can't sorry, let me just jump back to yeah, so just to be clear, the main contact is the one with the little star next to their name.
Got
So
it.
at the moment, what we've decided to do for the trial is we're only BCCing these special auto pay notifications to the main contact, and only team members can be main contacts.
Got it.
But we also have the concept of sort of listed as contact. So
Yeah.
you make like this person happens to be a
Right.
team
Okay.
member,
That's where I was getting
but
confused.
but
Okay.
you can make anyone, including like a trip coordinator or a co-planner, into a contact. They will get notifications of successful payments, but
Okay.
they at the moment they're not going to get those error cases. So
Okay.
that's something I think we decided for the trial not to just bombard everyone with all these new
Yeah.
emails, and see whether or not you feel like it would make sense to send those to everyone
The
who's listed as a contact.
okay.
Um, but let me just take that quick note that the planner notification should include whether they have enrolled, um, auto pay enrolled. Because I do find that sometimes when we send too many emails to people, then they just ignore them all. And sometimes it's just easier if you just sort of make it clear to them to come in to manage payments to see the payment method status there. And just to jump back to that mock-up there, and just
Mhm.
encourage your trip coordinators, your co-planners, or your group leaders to come in and just take a look here
Okay.
at this on a sort of whatever basis, and especially right around when the payments are due, kind of keeping on top of this list.
Okay.
Um, does that make sense in terms of the difference between
Yeah.
the notifications?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank
Anna,
you.
any questions from you?
No.
Oh, good. I'm glad we're it's a challenging concept, so I appreciate that so far it's making sense. And just noting, of course, if they've done bank transfer as their saved method, it'll show with a little bank icon there as well. So, um, so I think the other really important thing to note, and so I was showing you the case where they're not logged in, and we got good feedback there to make that a little bit more obvious here that they need to log in order to activate that. And of course, this continues to be true, which is that it will warn people if they're making another payment really quickly. So you'll see that in my demos because I'm making payments really quickly. So the thing is that they need to be logged in order to access these features. And I'm just gonna show you what that looks like as well from the from the checkout flow. It's that same kind of thing there. So if you see this, if a customer is like, hey, I see this, how come I can't activate these things? They just need to click that create user account in order to go through that flow. And Ansley, I believe you guys have the platform white label, so this will be fully branded to your company. But of course, for customers who aren't fully platform white label, this will have YouLi branding. So this is one of the reasons why we encourage kind of moving up into that platform white label, so your customers have that full branded experience. But if you do just have white label domain, it will show the brand here really prominently so that the customer knows they're in the right place. They're just making an account on a platform called YouLi. So that's a really important thing for you to be aware of when you're rolling out the save payment method, save card functionality, as well as AutoPay. So the other thing I want to show is once they have made an account, they will log in and they will see their trips on the I'm attending dashboard. And so, and if they go through that other flow, sorry, let me just go back to, let me go back here and do a quick login. I'm going to stop my share while I log in. So now you'll see the difference on the checkout flow is that it tells me that I'm logged in, and it prompts me to say, it's like, is this not you? You can log out. But it tells me that I'm logged in. And then that's why this now shows. So that those prompts are now sort of in that page. And so letting them know that a saved payment method and AutoPay available after a successful payment is made. So this is the important thing, is that in order to activate these features, they need to make a successful payment. And just go through this process.
Is AutoPay only available on credit card or also bank transfer?
No, AutoPay also on bank transfer. Yeah, I just don't have it set up on this demo account because it is US specific and a little bit more difficult to do the demos on.
That's okay.
All right. So I'm a traveler who's logged in. I'm going through checkout flow. I've put my credit card in, or to Ensley's point, if you have ACH or US bank transfer, there'll be another option here and you can switch to that. And then you'll see the same options down below here for that. Actually, and that's a really good point. I do just want to jump back up into where you configure that and take a note of what we were just talking about. It's like, oh, is it just for card or is it also for bank? Well, if you have US bank transfer turned on in your Stripe account for YouLi, then you might want to come in here and change this to say save card or bank details. So you might want to change this prompt from just save card to avoid having the same confusion from your travelers, right? But we defaulted to save card because that's the one that's always on with all Stripe connections. And it's up to you whether or not you also add the bank option into your account. And that's another thing, this consent, if you do have both options, you'll probably want to change it to not just say save your card, but save your card or bank transfer details. So yes, we provide you with some default text here, but you should really not use our default. You should be making sure that this matches the configuration that you have, and also that you've checked like with legal counsel and with your own operations to make sure that this text is correct, because we log this consent. So this is what shows here. We will log this information onto your trip activity feed, so that if you do have any disputes at some point, you can always go back and say, yes, but you ticked the box and consented to the following terms. So it's really important that you get that right, because that's going to be what protects you in case of any kind of chargeback complaints and disputes with Stripe, because you'll want to provide that information to say, no, I made it clear to them. Here's the text that I used. And so as long as that's really clear, you have a better chance of winning that dispute. You'll notice that the consent is actually different. And so it is a two-step process, and that is really important, because saving a card is just for convenience, but then they have to come back and like push the button again, or your team on the make a charge manage payment side need to click a button to use that card. But if they've checked the AutoPay, there's no manual intervention. The saved card or bank transfer method will be automatically charged. So be really, really conscious of the language that you enter here. This is something, and you might even want to balance those out when you have both on. So it's like, this one is if you want to come back and click the button each time. This is the one where you want to just let us do it automatically for you. So you probably want to think about helping your customers understand the difference between these two options, and why they would want one and not the other. So Ensley, have you guys already perfected your consent terms for AutoPay?
For AutoPay, I don't think we have. No, not yet.
So I would love to have some initial thoughts in terms of what you might say for AutoPay. Do you think you're going to get it like really legal consent language, or do you think you might make it a little friendlier, like make it easy so you don't have to come back and click an extra button?
I feel like probably more legal, because in our previous terms and conditions we had where they could choose different payment methods, one of which was automatic, and that was very like legal. It felt like very much legal jargon. So I will probably have it as more something similar to what is seen there.
And did you get legal consult on that to get that text?
Initially, like years and years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and so I think making sure that it feels very formal and feels very important in terms of making that choice. And so we've defaulted this to enable AutoPay for remaining installments. That might be okay. Do you think that you'll use that as the heading, or do you think you'll change that?
I think I will probably keep. I might change. I'm off the top of my head, I don't think anything I will change, but I don't like to say that I wouldn't. But I think my
Absolutely.
only like feedback there would be great if the like save the future card and enable AutoPay were like bolder, because the text
Ah.
seems to like kind of they like look almost the same. It would be nice to have that as like very bold, so people really it like stands out what they're
Like make
selecting.
the heading really bold,
Yeah.
like both headings, or just the
Yeah.
AutoPay one? Both
Both.
headings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they're both
okay.
optional to be selected.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Bold the save and AutoPay headings. Yeah, good to know. We can definitely make those more prominent. Cool. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and click through here. And this is going to drop me onto my trip page, and it will be pending until Stripe confirms it. Stripe has now confirmed it. That can take a little bit longer when it's a bank transfer, so sometimes that can be a little bit slower. So just keep that in mind, that it will sit there in kind of a pending state for a little bit. And so now we have successfully enrolled in an AutoPay schedule, right? And so that's when you'll see this showing here and that same information that we saw before. So now I'm actually enrolled in AutoPay on 2 trips. So I'm just going to jump back to See if I can get myself back onto the right one. There we go. So here I am logged in, and now you'll see before I just had the one trip and now I have the second trip. So that's another great thing about having like driving your customers to make accounts is that they can actually see all their trips. So hopefully you have lots of people, booking multiple trips with you. And so this will be a very powerful feature, but they can actually keep track of all the trips that they have themselves booked onto. And from here, they can click and get access. So we strongly encourage people to take advantage of this and encourage their travelers to basically just log in to access these things rather than necessarily depending on the emails and stuff like that. So the good thing is if you have white label domain, you can basically just send this link out to your customers and say, make an account and log in here to access everything you need. So I know a lot of our clients sort of count on the magic link model, which is basically they just get emailed reminders and confirmations and they can click from those links. And that's great and convenient in a lot of ways because they don't have to make accounts. But as we introduce these kinds of features, and especially if you're going to roll out AutoPay, it's probably easier to just encourage all of your customers to make accounts because then those features will always be visible to them and they'll be more likely to engage in the AutoPay and save card and things like that. So, and also it makes your operations a lot smoother because you just know that people are you're encouraging everyone to make an account. And so that way you have like a standard position like, oh yeah, please, it looks like you haven't made an account. Please make an account. And you can go from there. So I want to show you on the planner side how you can know whether or not someone has made an account. So if I jump into my AutoPay demo, one of the things you can take a look at is on the traveler trip board, you can actually see whether or not they have an account. So if you have a customer saying, oh, I can't do AutoPay, I can't save a card, and you say, are you logged in? And they're like, what, logged in? I don't, you can just jump in here and say, oh, I see you haven't made an account yet. Go ahead and make an account first. And then when you log in, you'll be able to see your trips under I'm attending. So that's a really quick way to sort of short circuit any traveler confusion about whether or not they've made an account, because I know sometimes people sort of forget whether or not they've made an account, right? Have you ever used that feature, Ansley? Did you know that was there?
Just learned it.
Excellent.
I'm looking right now at mine, so thank you.
Yeah, and I think I'll just pull up Rachel's record here. Oh, no, that's the wrong Rachel. Hold on, let me go back to the right Rachel. I need to go into this one. This is the fun with demo accounts. Rachel's everywhere. Here we go. Okay, so this this person has an account and they logged in on October 25th. Now that's in Australia's time zone because that's what my account's set into. So you'll see that date based on your user time zone. But this is how you know they have an account and when they last logged in. Because the other thing they might have an account, but it's, they logged in a year ago. So you can say, oh, it looks like you do have an account, but you haven't accessed it in a long time. So you might want to send them to the forgot password. So for example, and this is something like as you work more and more with your clients, you can, just going to open this up in a new tab, like more and more in this process, you can establish like sending them links directly to the forgot password. Like if they're struggling, they probably, if they're savvy, then they just know to click the forgot password button, right? So they probably won't contact you. But if they've contacted you, then you might just want to go ahead and send them directly to the forgot password link, just because they seem to not be savvy enough to find that link themselves. So that's just a little operational tip to kind of help smooth your traveler's experience. And again, this will be white label, platform white label. So Ensley, yours is Live and Learn. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So for example, for you guys, it'll look like this. And so obviously a much different brand experience for the platform white label as compared to just the domain, the white label domain. But they work the same way, they achieve the same goal. So both are very functional. So that's just a sort of operational tip on how to help your customers get in and get access. And so these are the kinds of things to think about as you're promoting AutoPay and save cards, save bank transfer information. Another thing to kind of note for you as you're thinking about rolling this out is the view as. So we love the view as feature. It's one of the powerful things that really allows you to kind of see what each individual customer will see. And so it's really handy because you can do a lot. You can finish tasks on their behalf and things like that. So that's really great if you're providing an extra level service. You can also verify their invoice before you send them a reminder just to make sure everything's correct. But the thing to know is that for AutoPay, you're not going to be able to cancel or manage AutoPay on their behalf via View As. So that's something you need to have them do. And we're thinking about giving you access to do it from the Manage Payments page. So so we're going to yeah, so we're working on the sort of the flow of this, but just keep in mind that you may, as we're going through this trial, there's going to be some adjustments to sort of how you manage that. So I'd love, Ansley, to hear your perspective on what would be your expectation for AutoPay. Do you want to be able to cancel it on behalf of your travelers, or would you rather that that's something only they can do?
Uh, I would, I think we would want the ability to cancel.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of times user error, they're like, I don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
or can you just do it for me? It ends up being
Yeah.
so. So yeah, it would be nice to have that control.
Um, so so the cancel of AutoPay, um, so that's something that we're going to be refining during the trial, exactly how you're going to do that. We're
Okay.
thinking it's either going to be from here or from this menu, depending on that mechanism. And so we'll keep you posted as that gets refined, and you'll see it starting to appear. But that's good to know in terms of the desire to cancel it. I do also want to note that you cannot make a charge when they're in AutoPay, right? So see how I can make a charge here? I cannot make
Okay.
a charge when they're in AutoPay. So that actually is another reason why you might want to cancel the AutoPay, because they've actually asked you to make a payment of a certain amount. Maybe they've added a special add-on and you need to take that charge right away. So you'd have to cancel the AutoPay, make that charge, and then go through the re-enrollment.
Okay.
I think you had asked the question about whether or not you can enroll someone in AutoPay yourselves, like automatically. And
Mhm.
we're finding this is a little bit of a tricky place in terms of like protecting you from chargebacks.
Yeah.
Because if you guys check the box to enroll them in an AutoPay, it means they have not seen that information. And yes, an email will be sent to them, but emails go to spam, people don't read them. So we're kind of tempted to say you need to get them to enroll in AutoPay, but I'm also open to understanding if there are ways that sort of your legal advisors sort of are telling you it would be safe to do that.
To be honest, we haven't consulted on that. I think our thing was that we wanted people to more of them to enroll in AutoPay
Mm-hmm.
because it's being a very manual process to track down people for their payments when it's all manual, when people
Yeah.
are going in every time and making payments and they're not making them on time, and making sure that they are making them on time, or they're not like, or they're not missing them. And so
Yeah.
we were talking as well about incentivizing them to be in auto pay. I know we had discussed that as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to another question about like adding some sort of like fee if they miss a payment, whether it's manual, or I was curious
Mm.
too if you can't make a charge on auto pay, like say someone fails a payment, and we have like a fee for that, how would we
Interesting.
for
Yeah,
that?
so let's say Rachel is in auto pay and then that um that automatic payment fails. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Um so let's just pretend that that's happened for her and that this payment actually failed. Then you would add a line item to
Okay.
say failed payment charge
Okay.
example. And so I don't know, is that $100, $50? What do you?
For a failed payment, I think it's 25.
Oh, okay. So then that's how you would do it right now. You would add that failed payment charge, and that will then show up on their invoice as an extra line item. So it's an interesting thought about making that something that happens automatically. Like if they've enrolled in AutoPay and that payment fails, then it automatically adds a charge. Is that what you're
Mhm.
thinking?
Um, I mean, that would be lovely if that was the
Hmm.
case. I think our initial thought was it would be something we would have to go in and do ourselves. I think
Yeah.
when I was speaking with my boss about having it where it's like they automatically are enrolled in AutoPay and then they have to like opt out versus right now they opt in. Um, but I
Well, we
understand what you're saying.
could,
Like the
yeah.
legal aspect of it, I think is, I don't know.
Mm. Yeah,
It was more
my
of a thought of my
suggestion would
boss.
be as part of the trial, seeing how much adoption you get. Have you found good adoption with just the saved methods so far, just with
Um,
cards?
you know what? That's actually a really good question. I personally have not been managing the payments, so I'd have
Hmm.
to consult with the person on our team that has been.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I'm not too sure on that.
And just a reminder that you can see whether or not people have their saved cards
With their
here.
little
So you
card
can see how
icon.
many of those are there. And also just a reminder that if they've saved a card or a bank, that you can come in here and you can actually use that card. So that's an important thing with regards to the consent that they're giving you for these cards. If your team is going to potentially use those,
Mhm.
um, like the default text says you're authorizing us to charge for overdue payments. So if you do have that policy and if it's in your terms and conditions and they have agreed to that consent, technically speaking, if it's past the due date of the installment and they have a saved method, your team could come in here and click to charge that saved card.
Okay.
So that's an operational thing. Make sure your terms and conditions are right. Make sure that's clear in the consent when they save their card or bank information. And then have your team come in kind of like the day after installments are due and just go through anybody who hasn't paid that has a saved method. You can go ahead and come in and make that charge. And then, it will confirm again. Um, and then you can charge that.
Okay.
So that's something another tool if because they're uncomfortable enrolling in auto pay, but they have saved the card. That can be something you can kind of explore that kind of process and that kind of balance between full automation and at least sort of streamlining late payments.
Yeah.
Um, so I do just want to show you, like, it will show these payments here that have been made, which I'm just going to jump back into my AutoPay demo. And then if they are, oops, wrong one. If they are enrolled in AutoPay here, then you'll see them as scheduled payments. So this is actually really important and very powerful. Obviously you see this little icon here, so you know they're enrolled in AutoPay, but in case they call you and they're like, well, when am I going to get charged? First of all, you can tell them to go see it on their trip page. And they will get reminders as well, but you can also come in here and tell them you're going to be charged on the 24th of November, you're going to be charged on the 24th of December, etc. And these are all based on the payment due date schedules in under the trip pricing schedule. So that's all set up here. So these due dates are where that's pulling from. So keeping in mind, of course, that these can be dynamic, and that's why it's important. If you need to know the exact date, you can't look here because it'll be dependent on the person's registration if you use that feature, or potentially trip start date. So you might need to go and look in the managed payments to actually see specifically what exact date it's going to be charged. Now, that being said, we do send automated reminders. So they should be getting, let me just jump up to the account, go to payments. So they will be getting reminders. So automated reminders, we're going to always send one day before the charge. So that's always going to be sent. And then you will have the option to configure this. And I think, Ansley, you guys are probably going to set this to 7 to be able to send a notification 7 days in advance. And this text is optional, but you can say whatever you need to say here to just sort of, and this is more branding, like brand voice stuff. So that's why it's optional. Like the actual email will contain everything that you need in terms of like, when's the payment going to happen? How much is it? And what's the payment method it's going to be? So I think, let me just pull that up for a second for you. Is this yeah. So if I just jump into the preview here. So it's basically going to look like this. It's going to be their first name. It's going to say AutoPay scheduled. It's going to be the amount will be charged on this date, this payment method, what that installment is. And so it's just sort of repeating the information. It's sort of like reinforcing. And then it just drives them to the invoice to change payment method or cancel AutoPay. So if you have a message, it'll be included up here. And so whatever if you feel like this message isn't complete enough, and of course, this will be your logo and your trip page banner, as well as the trip name. So if you feel like you need anything extra here as a general statement, if you're finding people are like, hey, in order to access your account, you need to click forgot password. Like if you feel like if people keep having issues or challenges, you can always learn from the challenges that your customers are having and put that information into this area here so that it's always sent in every reminder. So based on what you find people are getting confused about. So, but you can also just leave it blank if you feel like our standard automated reminders are, to the point and everything that they need. Yeah. So those reminders are going to be sent to tell them that the charge will happen. And to your point about sort of the default kind of thing, this is just saying you don't need to do anything, just be aware that the charge is coming. In terms of incentivizing them to enroll in AutoPay, I think that's a really interesting question. And I'd love to get more thoughts from our customers who are going through the trials and, what's the value of getting them to enroll? Let's see, I'm logged out again. Let me jump over here. What's the value to you of this AutoPay? Like, how much is it worth to your business for them to be in this state? And do you want to pass on any of that value to your client? Like, would you want to sort of like decrease the surcharge or something? Would you ever want to do something like that? Or it's more just, let's just make it really easy for them?
So I think we were wondering of even like a discount on the trip and like the price in a way.
Mhm.
But I know that makes it a little bit more complicated because then you have to go into each individual traveler and there's also the risk that they maybe eventually opt out of AutoPay. Then it's like, okay, then
Yeah.
it's just so what we had actually kind of discussed in the last couple days was instead of like the incentive being like less risk of a late fee or a charge. So I think that maybe might be the route that we
Ooh.
go is that like, and that's more of like an education piece, or I mean, it could be somewhere we list it, but where we recommend it and it's the way to avoid late fees.
Yeah. Oh, I like
For
that. Let me just jump back over to here. So, yeah, I mean that's an interesting way to think about it. If um, maybe if this prompt, and so currently this prompt is not something you can modify, but maybe we can make this either modifiable or we can the add this sort of fee-based structure so that it would actually say enroll in AutoPay to avoid late fees or
Mhm.
something like that. And
Yeah.
then if they enroll in AutoPay and it fails, it's still you still get the late fee, but you're decreasing your chances of getting the late fee in that case.
It-
Hmm.
Just a
Interesting.
thought.
Yeah, I like the direction that goes in instead of doing it as a positive, because to your point, they could enroll in AutoPay, get the credit, and then the payment
Yeah.
fails or they cancel it, and you can't really
Yeah.
control any of that, right? So
Mhm.
I like the avoidance of fees incentive is actually a lot better. Would you be willing to kind of test that out manually, just in terms of um, maybe even I'm just thinking about where you could put that in the content. Maybe even here, like in the terms and conditions, say, you understand that you'll be charged a $25 late fee for any missed payments. Maybe
Mhm.
if that was in this box, and maybe this is a good place to actually add that, like enroll in AutoPay to avoid these fees.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and then you can do the manual edition of it for now, and let us know if you're finding that really drives adoption. We can see about getting that sort of worked into an automated sequence
Okay.
where we do the late fee model. I really like that actually. It's a lot better than
Yeah,
the
the
bonus
incentives.
model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so I've covered um, a lot of things about AutoPay, um, but I'm hopeful that it's sort of intuitive enough in terms of the way that works. But at the end of the day, if something is not working for them, cancel the AutoPay, right? Like that's if you're sort of like, oh, why isn't this working? Cancel the AutoPay, do what you need to do, and then get them to re-enroll. But for definitely for now and possibly forever, um, only they can enroll in AutoPay, just so that it's super clear that they have consented to that. The other thing I do want to make sure everybody's aware of is that we are now showing the actual balance amount. Previously, in some cases, it would just say remaining because it can always change. So the thing I do want to call out here is we are now showing that number, but of course that number can change. So that just depends. Like by the time they get to pay their balance, it might not be 1,000, but right now it will be 1,000 unless something changes. So we've just stopped showing the word remaining, and now we actually show the amount. And we've also made another really important change as part of the AutoPay rollout, um, that if you've got a payment plan, but the customer comes and like pays in full from the beginning, So they don't pay a deposit, they don't pay any installments, they just pay in full. But then let's say something changes about their package and you have a change fee. And so there's an extra $650 owing. We now mark all of the unpaid installments as zeroed out, and we put the new $650 to the balance. So just to be clear, it used to be that if these installments had not, that amount used to be spread across those installments. So we've just pushed it all the way down into the balance. So this is going to happen anytime anybody makes a payment to the balance. So once that happens, they basically drop out of the payment plan. So this just makes everything cleaner. There were a few little inconsistencies about the user experience when we didn't do this. So this just makes it really clean. If you start making payments against the balance, we assume you've dropped out of the payment schedule. The thing is, it's really hard to make a payment against the balance unless you pay in full or you've gone through the whole sequence and you're starting to pay against the balance. So we believe this is the right approach, but we're, keen to hear feedback if you're finding that there are cases where it doesn't make sense. And so, so do contact us if somebody ends up with a payment against the balance and it's causing them to fall out of their installment plan. And it shouldn't. You can report that to support and we can take a look at that and see if we can help you fix that. And we are working on making it possible for you to sort of move those payments between installments so that you can kind of put them back into the plan if you need to. But does that make sense to you, Ansley, what I just described? Yeah. Did you ever run into that problem where somebody like paid in full and then their price went up?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just in our fourth maybe week of it
Yeah.
being of using it. So we haven't found anybody telling us about that yet.
Yeah, perfect. Well, then this will just be your normal. So so that'll be good. But yeah, and just to cover off a couple of other things that are changing this week, our release is going out in a couple of hours. And this is some fixes to the $0 packages, which I think you guys ran into some of those issues and those are being fixed. But basically, $0 packages are really powerful. They're more popular than we expected. We thought, why would people want to do $0 packages? But turns out there's lots of good reasons not to take money from people. So we're continuing to improve that feature and fixing some of the bugs that have come up there. We've also made it so you can default links to open in a new tab. Oops. Don't know why that just happened. So we've also made it so that you can default links to open in a new tab. So whenever you're creating new content, those links will now open in a new tab instead of opening in the trip page. So that's a great change to our default. Just be aware that it doesn't affect your current content. So if you've put links inside any of your itinerary descriptions, overviews, pricing explanations, like your terms and conditions, for example, and you didn't modify this setting, definitely go back in there and take a look. And there's just instructions here on how to make sure that that is opening in a new tab. So take a look at that for a better user experience for links. And a couple of other improvements here. We've got PDF invoice generation. So Ansley, your team will definitely have access to this feature. It's the ability to generate a PDF for the customer. And so previously it always included the itinerary, which can be quite long. And so we're now giving you the ability to include or exclude the itinerary section. So if you just want to generate basically a PDF invoice, but without the full itinerary, you can now exclude the itinerary section from that PDF generation. Awesome. So shout out to Select for sponsoring that change. And then we have another one. Actually, I think Ansley, you guys gave us feedback on this as well. We're making it so that the message is emailed after registration for checkout confirmations as well, and showing that content in a pop-up on the trip page. So now when you check that box, it will show on the trip page for them after checkout. So previously that only worked with register to pay. And now that is supported with checkout flow as well. So thank you for helping us address that.
Thank you.
And yeah, and then just some changes to custom roles. So for people who don't know this, you can actually have us define special user roles. This can be really great if you have like customers who are kind of like partial planners, but co-planners too powerful and trip coordinator is too weak. So we can actually create custom roles for you, and we've added more control there. So definitely check that out if you're feeling like the co-planner trip coordinator roles are not quite right. You might actually need a custom role developed. And yeah, and then of course, we talked about this earlier, ACH is now part of the saved card feature. So when we rolled it out, we called it saved card, but we've actually rolled out support for ACH as part of that. And that will just happen when you are turning on, let me just get to the right page. When you are a planner and you check this box. So see, now it says enable people to save their payment methods. So it used to say save their card. So that's why that now says save their payment methods, is because you can now, it will now automatically save the bank transfer information. And that is documented here as well. So if you're not following this summary, definitely come in and read more detail about how to set that up. All right. And back to here. And we've just improved the experience on choosing your payment schedule mode. So Ansley, are you comfortable with the difference between the dynamic payment plan, percentage, and fixed amount? Have you guys kind of figured out your payment schedule, preferred payment schedule mode?
Yeah, we've been using dynamic.
And so are you finding that is meeting your needs, or
Yeah, that is, yeah, especially because we can set like based on the date that we want. We always want 45 days or so before the trip departure to be the final day, like payment deadline. So that's been nice to then from there backtrack on each month, which day of the month the payment installment will be.
Excellent. Yeah, and so we found that we rolled out dynamic payment plan like only a couple of months ago, but it seems like it's sort of the preferred mode. So it's now the primary option when you're going to create a new deposit. So we're sort of encouraging everyone to use that. But of course, if you want fixed or percentage, you can still use those standard ones. Those are really good if you just have deposit and balance. So we have a lot of clients who do just deposit and balance and then let people do chip away. But if you want to give them the ability to pay month by month, dynamic is a really good option. And yeah, and just some other bug fixes and things like that. And then I just want to leave you with some exciting new things. We have white label mobile app is something that we are trialing with a number of customers. So if you are looking to get your own app on the Apple and Google app stores that for your travelers to access your itineraries, definitely reach out to sales and talk about the costs and timelines to roll that out. But we're making it even easier to work with those white label apps, and which is a really fun development. And we are also working on a sponsored pilot for enhanced accommodation, which is going to allow you to actually manage room blocks for hotels within your itinerary. So today, YouLi allows you to manage room allocation based on packages, but that kind of assumes you're staying in the same accommodation the whole time, or you have the same rooming relationship for the whole trip. So if you have actually a more complicated setup where you have people moving from hotel to hotel and you have different room configurations between those hotels, you can now, as part of this feature, you'll be able to create room blocks and allocate roommates so that you can be sure you know your rooms are full and your people are all allocated to rooms in each of the different hotels, depending on how those configurations are. So Ansley, have you, would you guys ever use anything like this, sort of a room allocation?
Yeah, we do use rooming or have rooming assignments as we get closer to the trip. We haven't tackled it yet.
Yeah.
So but it'll be coming.
Well, so this is currently in a sponsored pilot, but as that rolls out, we'll let people know how to gain access to it. This will be definitely an advanced feature, but because it is very, very powerful, but also only something you need when you're sort of managing very complex trips, and usually student trips. I find this is kind of in particular when you have the sort of triple, quad, double, like in lots of different kind of room configurations, and you have a lot of single student travelers that you need to sort of match up.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's our session for today, and hopefully you've come away with a good sense of how AutoPay is going to work. And Ansley, I believe you are part of the trial, so we'll be in touch to sort of talk to you in more detail about how and when you're going to roll it out, and dig in more deeply to your specific circumstances, which we're going to do with all of our trial customers for the feature. And for those of you who haven't gotten into the trial yet, definitely reach out and let us know that you're interested, and we'll see if we can get you in for November. And yeah, thanks for joining, Ansley. It was great to hear your
Thank you
input.
so much. Just want to say thank you to all the YouLi team, especially Anna, for all your help. I appreciate it. I know I'm very annoying, so thank you.
No,
Um,
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Don't
You've
worry
been
about it.
amazing,
Thank you.
and we, as you can see, so much of your feedback has been incorporated into the roadmap. So your suggestions are excellent. So keep them
Thank you
coming.
for listening. I
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Bye.
Have a